Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, CAC2 members. This is Vicki Binger. I apologize for the lingering wait that you had. In preparation for this, we've had some background audio trouble, and we're going to have a great presentation today. I really appreciate you setting time aside in your schedule. I'd like to give a special shout out to Robin French from the Morgan Adams Foundation for leading the technology side of things with backup from Scott Gilman. I'd like to thank every one of you today for joining the webinar as we are moving into the opportunity to turn the world gold because this is September Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And really, this is a crucially important webinar because we are working to bring an item through the project incubator, and that's what today's focus is all about. One of the things that we always do is start with a little bit of housekeeping, which includes showing you our CAC2 values. And if you'll forward the screen for us. One of the things that we really try to do is put the children and their families first in everything that we do. That has led us to a lot of successes over time, and as we take action, we work on collaboration and accountability, cost effectiveness, inclusiveness, being action oriented and flexible, and really trying to give voice to the community and amplify it in ways that individually we can't do ourselves, and it really helps to avoid duplication across our efforts. I would like to turn the presentation over to Phil Renna of the Christina Renna Foundation, who is going to talk about our webinar topic today and the opportunity that we have, and then he will introduce our presenters. So if possible, Phil, I think that you are up now.
Thank you, Vicki. My pleasure to actually introduce this new project, which is proposed by CAC2 members. And it's to create a searchable website for organizations with like-minded missions to connect, collaborate, and fund research. This database will really be used to utilize and match stakeholders. These are CAC2 foundations, and facilitate collaboration, as well as present and create an effective process to enable us with our limited resources and sometimes fragmented, but to work together for childhood cancer and to basically leverage that. This website will help us match foundations based on pre-selected requirements and to further this one-on-one conversation that we need to have as organizations. So at our annual summit in Ohio, we met and we had a bunch of ideas, and this one kind of floated to the top. And as a group, we selected this project. We utilized that time as a workshop to kick off this idea. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the two champions of this idea. Oscar Ortiz, he's the executive director of Sebastian Strong Foundation, and Elise Skelton, she's the director of donor development for Cure Search, Children's Cancer, and they've really championed this idea, and they're going to be our presenters today. And I'm really excited to turn it over to them, and first for them to describe how great this is. Oscar, Elise.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Phil. I appreciate the intro, and just a little bit of additional background on me. And hopefully, can you guys hear me okay? Because we've had some audio challenges. Can you hear me okay, Phil?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I've come into this world, as many of you on the phone have, being touched very personally through this and losing my son 2.5 years ago, a little over 2.5 years ago, to rhabdomyosarcoma. And through that process, like a lot of you have learned how dramatically underfunded and how much we need to do in this space. And with that, one of the things, and again, I'm a newbie to this, but one of the things I've seen in this short time is we're all in this 100%, but there's a lot of duplication of efforts. And because of these limited resources, we want to all be able to do more. Everybody's in this, and this was validated when we all saw each other in Ohio. we want to be able to do more. And we believe that what we're talking about here is going to allow us to truly collaborate and get more from the very limited resources that are available for pediatric cancer research. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So Melissa, if you can go ahead and switch, so we can speak to a little bit of the goal of what we want to create here. Ultimately, we want to create as you read there, a website for organizations with like-minded missions, so we can connect. What we discussed back in Ohio, I think, with a lot of the groups that I facilitated, is a lot of times we find that there's duplication of efforts, or we find ourselves, or some foundations find themselves in situations where they feel like, I may raise, a couple people mentioned this, they raise $15,000, $20,000. They don't feel it's significant enough to participate in something like research, so maybe they give it back to the hospital where their child was treated or family member was treated. And unfortunately, some of that stuff goes to overhead. It's necessary, but it isn't being used, I think, for what we'd ultimately like to in a lot of cases, which is research or direct family support. So we feel that by bringing this together, we're going to be able to expand the value of those dollars. And then the other key part of this is, again, in my brief time, I've spent quite a bit of time talking to researchers, and they all, to a person, everyone that I've spoken to says we spend, I think the average that they've come up with is about 20% of their time writing grants. I know everyone on this call would like that number reduced. What we want these very smart and capable people doing is allocating as much of that time as possible to research, to finding new options, to finding new answers. So this is twofold as we build out for this. So the database, or the idea behind this is simply, we're going to fill out, if you will, and Melissa's going to go in a little more detail, but fill out similarities so that we can connect with people who are like-minded, whether it be by disease type, whether it be by type of research that's being done, by geography, whatever the case may be. So the idea is that the foundations are going to be matched up based on these profiles that are set up. So Melissa, if you can, and this is a sample we showed in Ohio, and you can sort of walk through it. This is not, this is just a complete raw example, if you will, of what we're looking for. And Melissa, if you can just click through. Our goal is through this process to develop something like this that will we'll develop our own profiles, and then as we walk through, this will be the kind of data that would pop up and ultimately align you with either specific projects or specific foundations. We're open to that, but the ideal here is that we're bringing these resources together that are unfortunately fragmented way too often. So Melissa, I'll turn it over to you now to share a little bit more about who will benefit, the value, and what does the finished product look like.
Thanks, Oscar. Hi, everyone. So we're very excited about this project, and we've been, working a lot on putting together some of these goals to make sure that they're very clear, and what does a finished product look like. So who will benefit from this? Obviously, CAC2 member organizations will benefit because they'll be able to find partners, like-minded partners. The idea is that in order, to when foundations put their information into this system, they'll be following a very specific set of questions. So it'll be easily searchable. You can find other organizations that fund the same type of research or what you're looking to fund. They do the things that you're looking for. So, and it'll be comparing apples to apples as opposed to apples to oranges. So, in addition, as Oscar mentioned, the greater research benefit or research community will benefit. Instead of one organization being able to fund, 20% of a research project, and then the researcher having to go a bunch of other places to fund the rest of the project, organizations can match up and partner and hopefully fund, 100% of the project. And that means that the researcher saves time in writing grants and applying to these different organizations. So it will also benefit the greater research community. this is we see this as very valuable for a bunch of different reasons, but mainly this is a place where people can go to find partners, to find collaboration, to form collaborations, to fund more research. So it's a one-stop shop essentially, where people can go and look for partners. It allows foundations to fund larger opportunities. So if there's a project that maybe is too expensive for one organization, it allows a bunch of organizations to kind of work together to get that funded. It creates streamlined and standardized information. So when you're looking for a partner and you want something specific, you want to fund a young investigator, or you want to only fund a specific disease type, you're able to find that easily because the information is at your fingertips and streamlined. And this also elevates CAC2 credibility in this space because if people know that we have this type of thing where all of our information is standardized and you can go and look for the type of partners that you're looking for, it makes it more appealing to others that are considering joining CAC2. So what does done look like for this product or for this project? The finished product would allow for matching up a foundation. So we originally called this product or this project like a match.com idea, but we kind of took a step back because it's not going to present, you're not going to get an email every week and it's like, oh, it looks like these foundations are a good match for you. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a searchable database that spits out some matches at you once you put in your criteria. So this will allow for a matching up of foundations with similar interests and goals. And it will be done and successful when partnerships are developed through this process and we're able to share those. And so, we've come up with some ideas about how we can track these types of partnerships, perhaps sending the initial email through the website, or alerting CAC2 membership, that a contact has been made or a relationship has happened or a project has been funded. Some way to share out these successes, not just to fund the research, which is the ultimate goal, but also to encourage others to form partnerships through this website. And Oscar, I think it's back to you about our major tasks and next steps.
Okay, thank you, Melise. As with all of these projects, ideas are great, but then the execution and some of the things that need to happen behind the scenes are critical. So some of the things that are important, Melise, we can switch is we've got to identify an in-kind technology partner. Based on high-level conversations both Melise and I have had with potential technology partners, this is not an overly complex, in the world of technology, not an overly complex undertaking. But obviously, we want to work with someone who's willing to absorb as much of the cost or do it at a low cost for us. And then from there, obviously, identify what, in this conversation, identify what the need is going to be financially to do this and figure out how we fund it. Then, we'd like to develop a working group, and we identified some of the folks at the summit this summer who would be part of this, because this, again, as Melise and I both shared, is a first level sort of, this is 1.0. We'd like to have input from the broader community to determine what other features they would like included in this first phase. And then we need to, I think one of the things that's critical for this to work, no matter how good of a technology we put together, if we don't, as organizations and members of CAC2, put our information in there or take the time to develop a well thought out answers to the data that we're requesting, it becomes limited in the ability, in its functionality. And I think, again, at the CAC2 level, the goal would be to have, as you guys all do, let's make sure we push this out and get 100% participation in loading that. So go ahead and you can switch to the next slide there, Melise. Thank you. So as I shared earlier, we'd establish a data subcommittee to figure out what exact information we want in there. We'd create a standardized template, because the key for this to be successful is also for it to be easy to use. The organizations are responsible for submitting their own information. And I think that this has value beyond, I know periodically we're looking for updated information. We can incorporate this, in my vision, we can incorporate this as sort of our annual updates to make sure we've got the most recent information on our membership. As we move forward in this process, we're just talking at this point about phase one, but as we envision this in later stages, and this would require more effort, is to build in the research or support the proposals, if you will, that side of the equation. And we would have to develop additional process for that, a scientific advisory council or scientific review process, which would, again, allow for an apples to apples comparison and make sure. So that again is more of a phase two project, but phase two of this project, but I wanted to make sure that that's where I think this ultimately has the most value. Today we're talking about just building the database and the infrastructure for it and making sure we have the best and most accurate information from our membership. So go ahead there, Elise. We'll turn it over. I'll turn it over back to you as you walk through this foundation match.
Sure. So this is, we're really looking forward to hearing everyone's ideas and feedback on this, because as I know we saw this slide earlier, but I just wanted to, now that we've kind of gone through, I wanted to look at this in a bit of a different light. So, what this could possibly be, a very easily searchable website where you can find different types of things that you're trying to do. You can help better fulfill the mission of your organization, or help fund more research or more things that you're trying to do by collaborating with other organizations. This is, we've obviously put a lot of thought into this, but I'm very excited to hear what everyone has to say and any questions that you have. So thank you very much. And I think we will open it up for questions unless you have anything else to add, Oscar.
No, that's it. We welcome questions. We wanted to be as succinct as possible. So if we ran a little too fast, you have specific questions about the presentation, this is the time. We really encourage it.
Okay, so I'm going to open up the mic. If anyone has a question, actually, I'd ask you to raise your hand on the left side of the console. On the console, there's a little hand. You could raise your hand and we'll open the mic for you. If not, you could also type your question into the question box and I'll ask the question for you. Do we have any questions?
There is a question from Liz, and her question is, are you looking for committee members to help with this?
Yes, I think we identified a small team at the summit, but we'd welcome others to be part of this. I think we want diversity of thought. And frankly, from my standpoint, I've only been in this world for 2 years, so I know that there's a lot of you who've got significantly more experience in this world, and I welcome that. So
this is Vicki. In general, if I could help out answering that question from a general point of view rather than from this particular project, what the project incubator process looks like is that we have some folks really committed to fleshing out the idea about the project. Beginning next week, everyone in CAC2 who is going to be voting on this project will receive an explanatory email about what is being proposed for phase one of this project, and explain what the endorsement process looks like. And there will be a set of questions that you will receive a link to a SurveyMonkey about, and it will ask you not just, do you think this is a good project for CAC2, that you endorse the idea of us pursuing this project, but there will be some follow-up questions that will ask if you would like to be involved in this, and there might be particular tasks that are delineated in ways that you can become involved in actually carrying the project out. And then there will be questions about how you will commit to support the project if you are endorsing it, which might ask you, simply, are you going to be, willing to participate in it? And so this project process does give there's sort of a committee of the willing to do the work, and then a larger committee of the willing to participate in things. And so so I do think that there will be plenty of opportunities to slope to your own involvement based on the needs of the project. Are there other questions on your control panel? You can either raise your hand and speak your question if it's too complicated to write out in the chat box, or you can ask a question in the chat box. I have a question. What's the timeline for what you're thinking about?
As soon as possible.
So not when it's going to start, but how long do you feel like it will take? And then I can see a number of other questions popping up. So if you'd like to defer that and think about it, that's fine. But we really do need to know whether this is going to be operational in a month, 6 months, 6 years, as part of whether we'll be able to. So Tara,
short answer would be hopefully in a month have a couple of proposals from technology, because I think cost is going to be a significant driver of this. In terms of I'm not aware of there being a specific budget allocated for this yet, so our goal is to obviously make this as low cost and high impact as possible. So within a month, have a couple of options from potential technology partners, and within that have at least a shell of what they think they would be able to create. And then from there, come back to the leadership and make some recommendations in terms of next steps.
Okay.
I just wanted to add really quickly. I think that the longest pieces here will be potentially identifying the technology partner, which hopefully won't take very long, but building the site, it's not a super complicated site. I think the longest process will be collecting information from all of the members to putting it into the site. So I think there's two parts, I guess, to your question. The timeline on getting the site up and running, fewer than 6 months for sure. But then I think making sure that all of the information is in there, I think that might take a little, I don't know how long that will take. It really depends on how excited everyone is and how fast people can get their information into the site.
Great. So I think that Tara Garrity has a question, and I can either read it or we can raise, we can open the mic for her.
I'm unmuted, but Vicki, you can go ahead and read that.
Oh, okay. Here's the question. Will you need to be a CAC2 member to access this project? And if yes, why?
Melissa and I had a chance to speak about this yesterday. My perspective is it should be open. I think this can be used as a recruiting tool, and ultimately again, my perspective is we all want to do more, and if we can bring others under this umbrella and create more collaboration, whether they're CAC2 members yet or not. That would be my take. Melissa, I don't know if you want to add any more to that.
Yeah, I think the idea, it would be great to have it open to all. I think that in this stage, because it's new and we're building it and making sure that it's functional and useful and kind of working out all the kinks, it makes the most sense to be just internal to CAC2. But I don't see it would be great if everyone could participate in this.
Well, and my thought was, I'm sorry, this is Tara. My thought was is that this might be a great added value benefit for being a CAC2 member if ultimately you want to increase your membership, that as a nonprofit who's, you have this great resource that would be available to you simply for being part of CAC2. So that would be another kind of thought on it. And also, if there are research opportunities, do you want those, the other side of that is there's great research opportunities. You might find a nonprofit that uses it and then goes, wow, this was so great, we want to join and be part as a reason, as a result of being part of that. So whatever I think maybe would benefit most, but I was curious on how that would look moving forward.
I agree with you, Tara. I think that would be our vision, and maybe it's phase one. If you want to use it as a non-member, you can use it for a year and you see value, then you got to join to be a member. But I think we want to open it up and show potential members that this is another piece of additional value, something else that CAC2 is doing for the community, the broader community.
So I have a question from Cole Stenholm, and he asks, how will the project be marketed to potential researchers, investigators, or research institutions seeking funds?
So I think this first phase, this first part that we're doing we're not marketing outside of foundation. So the primary purpose of this part of this initial part of this project is to match up foundations. So for example, let's say Oscar and I find each other on the site. We both are interested in funding a young investigator, but we both have, a smaller pot of money. So Oscar reaches out and says, hey, do you have any cool projects that we might be able to collaborate on? And then we take it from there. So this would more be marketed, this portion would be more marketed towards foundations and organizations that have money that they would like to spend in a more targeted way, or more, impactful, because it's a larger pot of money way. It would not be marketed outside. These are for internal collaborations between foundations.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from Hy-Vee Thompson. What do you see as the biggest challenges to getting this project going, and how can member organizations best support?
This is Oscar. I think the challenge is working through this partner, and to what Elise said earlier, I think it's internally, as far as assistance, is making sure we have 100% participation from our membership, and hopefully use it as a potential recruiting tool. But I think that's probably the most important piece, and as we think through that, it's maybe partnering up organizations, making sure that you've got a buddy. Hey, did you do it? Did you do it? In order to get there, because I don't see any downside to this first phase of what we're doing. I think it's going to be helpful information for CAC2 to be able to figure out where their membership is working on, what they're working on regularly. So Melissa, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I agree that that's probably going to be the toughest part, is making sure that everyone participates. That being said, we have identified a few potential technology partners that would be willing to help out with this, either pro bono or for a discounted rate. But if you're sitting on this webinar thinking, oh my goodness, my best friend builds websites and has offered millions of times to do something pro bono for us, that would be helpful as well. So both of those things.
Okay, put the call out for questions again. I guess one question that I have is, I think one of the key for CAC2 to have come through this far and completed our first 7 projects successfully. We have an 8th project in best practices in bioethics that's ongoing, and this will be our 9th project in 6 years and a few months. One of the things that's been crucially important is understanding how to measure results. so that as you think about year one after fundingmatch.com is up and running, how will we know whether we've done something good or not?
Elise, I don't know if you want to talk through the tracking component that we had discussed yesterday.
Sure. So I think, we obviously haven't gotten into the nuts and bolts of everything, but Oscar and I had a conversation yesterday about how we would track positive collaborations or potential collaborations, and we came up with a couple of different ways. One being where you have to send your initial email to the other organization through the website. So, and that's tracked, or you have to send it that way, and then you get their contact information, like their phone number and things, so you can call them as well. But that's a way for us to track how many connections are being made. That doesn't tell us how many successful connections are being made, but I think it could be something, when I know we fill out a yearly survey, potentially there could be a question about that. We could, the steering committee, we have to figure out we could have someone that kind of monitors the site. Obviously, there's not a lot of upkeep for something like this, but just monitors and sees when those relationships are happening, and then makes sure to follow up and see if anything came of it. There's a couple of different ways that we can monitor if the connections are being made, and then hopefully if something positive happens, we will either put in a way to report out on those, or if you're able to fund something and you develop this great relationship, hopefully you'll be happy about it enough to report it to CAC2 leadership or the group yourself. So we don't have the nuts and bolts of that, but I think that we can at the very least track that initial contact, and then hopefully follow up and see if anything successful came out of it.
And again, this is going to be, I think we need to have a venue or a process by which to have share some of these success stories. Because I know there's collaboration of different types amongst these groups that's happening today, maybe not in this sort of formal setting, but I'm aware of collaboration that happens. We've tried to do it as an organization, so I think it's sharing those successes is going to be helpful to build more momentum around it.
Oscar, we had an additional question from Hy-Vee that was just a matter of practicality, and that is whether these slides were going to be shared after the webinar ends. And I answered in the dialog box, but just for everyone else on the phone, not only will we have the opportunity for you to view the slides, but also we're recording this webinar, and the recording of it will be available. And in addition, you will next week, when we begin the process of going into consideration, we will have a honed down version of the slide deck with kind of the specifics of the project and a description of what's going on, so that everybody knows what the parameters are for what we are considering as this particular project that we're okaying. And I have just all kinds of admiration and gratitude for the folks that are on the phone and the folks that are not on the phone, but who have been backing this team up since, I'd say, April, when we finally got serious about a question that has been looming in the CAC2 space since Project Collaborate, and that is, what mechanism can we have to lower the burden on investigators and leverage the magnificent effort that our organizations go to raise money, so that we can have a greater and greater impact on the work. And I think that they have done just a terrific job in being, considering the questions and coming up with a reasonable solution. Is there any other questions or comments, and either from the team that is presenting or for the team that is in attendance and eagerly wanting to hear more about this project, or have concerns that have not been expressed yet. All right, hearing none, there will be a time period over a matter of a week to 10 days once you see the specifics of what the proposal is going to be, that you will be able to ask questions about it before you'll have to make a decision. So we will, I'm sure, all put our thinking caps on. I also want to thank Oscar and Melise for preparing this presentation for Joanne Salcida at the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation, and Robin French for making all of our webinars possible. I would like to extend an invitation to any of you who are going to be at Cure Fest that there is room for you at the CAC2 reception on Friday evening. That's September 20th, and I would also like to, just encourage you. This is our month, and if you have things that you're involved in, activities that you're promoting, proclamations that you you've secured from your local school district or city council or county commissioner's court, or even at the state level, if you have any public buildings that you've had illuminated gold, or teams that are wearing gold shoelaces, or other projects, please submit those on the event calendar so that we have a good view of what's happening with our members and beyond around the country. And I really do appreciate the work that we're all doing together. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Oscar. One last thing. I know there was a couple of people who expressed interest at the summit to be involved, but how do we, I'm comfortable with people reaching out to Melise and I directly, for those that want to be involved in this project or play a role.
So,
what is typical protocol so that we...
So Oscar, what will happen is that when you describe the project as it's going to be worked out over the next X number of months, and you think about what roles and kinds of help that you will be looking for, that will be a question on the project incubator survey that says, will you volunteer for this task, this task, this task, this task, this task, this task, or in general, make yourself available to the team. And so you will be able to collect information about the folks who have a commitment to helping. There will also be a question that will ask each organization or person's intention on participating in this project once it is up and running, and how they might envision doing that, or promoting that, or making connections. So your team will work together with Phil and with Lauren and me to create what that looks like. So, for example, when we were doing the research conference, there were a lot of volunteer roles about, doing marketing and doing hosting and working with invitations and working with the program and so on. In other projects that we've done, there were other kinds of project roles, and so we'll have to think about what your team needs and what folks may be willing to offer in terms of their help. So if you're looking for a technology partner, then that will be a question. Can you be the technology partner, for instance? Or would you like to be considered to be the technology partner? Or do you know someone that would do that.
Thank you, Vicki.
Okay, well, we don't usually finish early, but here we are, having finished early. I would like to tell everybody that you will get a follow-up email, and then I will send out a link to be able to view this webinar again, and I'll ask Melissa and Oscar to actually also send me a PDF of the slideshows, so that for those who don't have 45 minutes to watch the whole thing, they can see the details in the slide deck. And you'll just be receiving emails from me over the next couple of weeks, describing what the project is, opening up voting, reminding you to vote if you haven't, and you'll also probably get an email or two from me reminding you to register to RSVP to the reception at the Marriott Metro Center on September 20th. And I know all of you are exhausted because September is a big month, and the run up to September is both emotional as well as laden with a lot of duties. So I hope that you are getting some rest, as well as lifting your voice on behalf of children and adolescents and young adults everywhere. Thanks very much. We'll be ending the presentation.